Welcome to another episode of People L Pod. I want you to picture the intense, stifling heat of a Las Vegas arena.
Okay, I can picture that.
So on the mat, there is this fierce, highly disciplined martial artist. She's like locked into this perfect stance, right? Executing moves with such brutal precision that she is about to have a heavy gold medal draped around her neck as a triple world champion.
Wow. Okay, that's a powerful image.
Right, so hold that image in your mind. Now, I want you to completely switch gears. Picture a deeply anxious teenager. She's sitting on the floor of a quiet bedroom in Essex.
That is quite the pivot.
Yeah, and she is completely isolated, like totally ostracized by her entire school, and she's quietly adjusting this cheap digital camera to film herself singing, basically just to keep her mind from spiraling.
Man, that's heavy. You're looking at two entirely different psychological universes there.
Exactly, but the twist here is that these two people are the exact same person.
It sounds like an exaggeration, honestly, but it is the literal foundation of one of the most successful artists in modern music.
It really is. Today we're pulling from her best-selling memoir, some official chart data, and even digging into historical martial arts registry archives, which is wild.
Yeah, that was a fun rabbit hole.
Totally. We're trying to figure out how these two extremes forged the British pop superstar Anne-Marie Rose Nicholson.
Right, and just to set the stakes for you, if you only know her in passing, we were talking about a vocalist with billions of streams.
Billions with a B.
Yeah. She's the engine behind massive global anthems like Rockabye 2002, Friends, and she even spent years as a coach on The Voice UK.
But, the mission of this deep dive isn't just to recite a list of her platinum plaques. We are here to understand a complete subversion of the pop diva archetype.
I love that phrase, subversion of the archetype, because it's so true.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Anne-Marie didn't achieve global dominance by hiding her immense vulnerabilities beneath some, glossy PR shield. She weaponized them.
Which is exactly why her story is so compelling, because you cannot separate the rigid, hyper-focused martial artist from the vulnerable, ostracized teenager.
No, you
They
can't.
aren't just like two phases of her life. They're the two psychological mechanisms that built her specific brand of authenticity.
So let's establish that dust line, starting with this bizarrely intense childhood. She grew up in East Tilbury, Essex, and she didn't just, casually like singing.
Right, she wasn't just in the school choir.
Exactly. She was enrolled in stage school by age 5, and this detail absolutely floored me. At age 6, she secretly orchestrated an audition for a West End production of Les Miserables without telling her parents.
Okay, let's just pause on that for a second.
Yeah.
Think about the sheer audacity, the executive function required for a 6-year-old to do that.
I mean, I couldn't even make my own breakfast at 6.
Right. Most kids that age are still mastering, tying their shoes. To sneak into a West End audition implies this terrifying level of autonomy and drive.
Yeah, terrifying is a good word for it.
And it clearly wasn't a fluke. Cause by 12, she was starring in the musical Whistle Down the Wind alongside a young Jessie J.
But the theater stage was really only half of the equation here. At age 9, she started taking lessons in Shotokan karate.
Which is not a joke.
No, and I want to be super clear about this. This wasn't some suburban after-school club where you, break a piece of balsa wood and get a participation ribbon.
Yeah, Shotokan is a highly traditional, very linear, and deeply disciplined martial art.
And she was insanely good at it. By 2002, she was competing at the Funakoshi Shotokan Karate Association World Championships in Las Vegas, and she won double gold.
A preteen dominating a global combat tournament. Just wild.
Right. And intriguingly, that specific 2002 tournament in Vegas accidentally unravels a long-standing piece of industry spin.
Oh, the birth year mystery. I love this part.
Yes. For years, if you looked her up in media profiles, her birth year was listed as 1991. But I was looking at the timeline, and the math just doesn't work.
No, it doesn't.
Because if she was 12 at a tournament in late 2002, she couldn't have been born in 1991.
The math definitely doesn't work.
Yeah.
And when you cross-reference those official karate records from Las Vegas with the actual civil registration indexes, it definitively proves she was born in 1990.
It's so funny that karate records busted the music industry's PR.
Well, the music industry has this notorious habit of shaving a year or two off a new artist's age,
Yeah.
To market them as a slightly younger prodigy. But karate archives don't care about pop marketing.
They really don't. That PR manipulation makes me wonder, though, how much her martial arts background actually translates to the recording studio.
How do you mean?
Well, because on paper, kicking someone in the chest and, like, singing a pop hook have absolutely nothing in common.
Oh, physically? No, of
Yeah.
course not. But psychologically, they rely on the exact same kinetic chain of focus.
Okay, break that down for me.
So, in Shotokan karate, discipline isn't just about showing up. It's about controlling your breathing, your heart rate, and your fear when someone is actively trying to strike you.
Right, you can't just flinch.
Exactly. You have to maintain your stance under extreme duress.
You know, actually, that makes me think of the concept of ki in martial arts.
Oh, yeah.
That sharp, guttural shout you do when executing a strike, it's designed to channel your internal energy outward and project absolute confidence.
That's a great point.
Because if you think about it, that is the exact same physiological mechanism required to walk onto a stadium stage and project a vocal hook to, like, 80,000 people. You are channeling pressure into projection.
There's a brilliant way to frame it, honestly. She was learning how to master her internal adrenaline. So by 12, she is physically invincible, holding gold medals and standing on West End stages.
She has the ultimate armor.
Right. She's built this impenetrable shell.
Wait, I'm confused then, because the timeline says that just 2 years later, at age 14, her entire world basically collapses over something seemingly trivial.
Yeah, it does.
So she's this physically invincible world champion, but a rumor at school completely breaks her. How does that compute?
It computes because, well, martial arts operates on strict, predictable rules. High school sociology is just pure, unstructured chaos.
Oh, that is so true. High school is brutal.
At 14, she was falsely accused of cheating on her boyfriend. And the actual reality, she had simply spoken to another boy on the phone late at night.
Which is nothing.
It's nothing. But teenage social ecosystems don't care about facts. They care about spectacle. So she was completely shunned by her peers.
And we have to layer this social exile over a massive unprocessed trauma, too. Just 2 years prior, the same year she won those gold medals, her grandmother died.
Right. So you take a grieving kid, strip away her entire social support network overnight, and you get complete isolation.
She retreats to her bedroom in Essex. And this, to me, is where the mechanism of her future career is really built.
Because of the camera.
Exactly. Instead of lashing out, she sets up a camera and starts filming herself singing. And not in some glossy studio. It's just a teenager staring into a lens, trying to survive the noise in her own head.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you can see how this bedroom isolation incubated her specific artistic voice.
How so?
When you are socially rejected, you have to find a way to self-soothe. Music became a literal coping mechanism long before it was a commodity. By filming herself, she was unconsciously building a parasocial bond.
Oh, like she was singing to an imaginary friend, basically.
Exactly. She wasn't performing for a theatrical audience anymore. She was singing directly into a lens, desperate to be heard by someone, anyone.
And that raw, unvarnished delivery is the exact tone that modern digital audiences crave. It's basically the antithesis of the polished diva.
Which explains how that raw emotion eventually breached the walls of her bedroom. I mean, it started with a chance encounter that landed her some recording time at Elton John's Rocket Studios.
Yeah, not a bad place to start.
Right. That led to a management deal. And by 2013, she had cut a demo track called Summer Girl.
And that demo is what really struck the match, because Ed Sheeran, who obviously commands a massive digital megaphone, stumbled across Summer Girl and tweeted a link to it.
And overnight, the industry spotlight pivots directly onto Anne-Marie.
But this is where the story takes a super weird detour. Because with that kind of momentum, the standard playbook is to immediately drop a solo album and cash in, right?
Right. Strike while the iron is hot.
But instead, her management hits the brakes. She does a few vocal features, and then in 2014, she joins the drum and bass band Rudimental as a touring vocalist.
Yeah.
She spends 2 entire years traveling the world singing their songs, not hers. So I have to ask, did spending years singing other people's songs in Rudimental delay her finding her own identity, or was it the ultimate pop boot camp?
Oh, it was an absolute masterclass in artist development, which is something the modern industry rarely affords anyone anymore.
That's true. Usually they just throw you to the wolves.
Exactly. Thrusting an unpolished solo artist into the global spotlight based on one viral demo is a recipe for burnout. Touring with Rudimental was the ultimate pop boot camp.
I see the connection, though. I do wonder if singing drum and bass really translates to mainstream pop. Like, they seem so different.
Well, it translates because of the sensory demands of the genre. Drum and bass is relentless.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
The tempos are frantic, the bass literally physically vibrates your chest on stage, and you have to learn how to project your vocal stamina over these massive electronic drops.
So she's building her endurance.
Exactly. She got to perform on global festival stages, featuring on their album We the Generation, alongside veterans like Dizzy Rascal. But, and this is key, without carrying the terrifying pressure of the brand on her own shoulders.
Ah, she could make mistakes in the shadows.
Precisely. By the time their collaborative hit Rudimental dropped in 2015, she had stress-tested her vocals and her stage presence.
And when she finally did step out on her own, that kinetic chain we talked about earlier just unleashed.
It really did.
After dropping her debut Karate EP, which, by the way, is a great nod to her foundation, she hit the stratosphere in late 2016. She became the main vocalist on Clean Bandit's Rockabye alongside Sean Paul.
And that track didn't just chart, it dominated.
Yeah, 9 consecutive weeks at #1 in the UK, capturing the coveted Christmas #1 spot, and the official charts company eventually named it the 57th biggest song of the entire 2010s decade.
That is massive. And she parlayed that momentum into her 2018 debut album, Speak Your Mind, which actually became the biggest debut by a British artist that year.
But we have to talk about the cultural anomaly of the song 2002, which she co-wrote with Ed Sheeran.
Yes, Ed Sheeran practically had to bully her into releasing it.
I know, and it's a good thing he did, because the song was massive everywhere, but the data out of South Korea is just staggering.
It's hard to even wrap your head around.
In 2019, 2002 became the #1 song on South Korea's year-end chart. Anne-Marie became the first and only foreign artist to ever achieve that.
Which is insane when you think about the market there.
Totally. It was the most streamed song on Melon, which is this massive Korean platform, eventually becoming the only non-Korean song to break past 350 million streams there. So how does a track about nostalgic British youth culture dominate a market known for, like, hyper-engineered K-pop?
It dominates precisely because of the contrast. K-pop is often characterized by flawless choreography, pristine production, and idol culture.
Right, it's very polished.
Anne-Marie brought that unvarnished Essex bedroom authenticity. The nostalgia and emotional vulnerability in her vocal delivery completely transcended the language barrier.
So people don't just listen to the lyrics.
Exactly. They process the empathy and the tone.
Which brings us to the most complex part of her narrative, the reality of the human being actually producing that tone. We've established the karate champion, the outcast, and the chart topper. But what really sets Anne-Marie apart is her radical transparency regarding the friction in her own brain.
Yeah, she doesn't play the glossy PR game at all.
Not even a little. She has openly discussed her diagnoses of ADHD, dyslexia, obsessive-compulsive disorder, and severe anxiety.
And we have to look at how those specific neurodivergent traits interact with the reality of pop stardom, because the music industry is inherently chaotic.
Oh, yeah. Relentless travel, changing time zones, unpredictable schedules.
Right. And for someone with OCD, which often demands rigid routines and control to manage intrusive thoughts, that chaos is a nightmare.
And for someone with ADHD?
Well, the hyperfixation might be brilliant for writing a melody, but the sensory overload of a press junket can be debilitating.
That makes so much sense. She actually used the forced pause of the 2020 lockdowns to enter intensive therapy, facing what she called her demons. And she even distilled this process into a Sunday Times best-selling book, You Deserve Better, an imperfect guide to finding your own happiness.
But it's not a preachy self-help book where she claims to be fixed.
Exactly the opposite. She presents herself as a constant work in progress. She is handing her fans the coping mechanisms she had to learn through trial and error.
And the physical manifestations of her anxiety are fascinating, specifically regarding her need for control. Like, take her diet.
Oh, yeah. Starting around 2018, she was a strict vegetarian. But it wasn't driven by environmentalism or, like, animal rights.
No. She admitted on a podcast that she suffers from emetophobia, which is a severe, debilitating fear of vomiting.
Her vegetarianism was basically an anxiety-driven mechanism to exert control over her environment. She avoided meat because she was terrified of food poisoning.
That is a profound insight into how anxiety dictates behavior. She was using diet as a shield. But the beautiful, messy reality of life is that biology eventually forces you to surrender control.
Right. Fast forward to early 2025, and she candidly reveals that she completely dropped the vegetarian diet. Why? because she was dealing with gestational diabetes and intense pregnancy cravings.
Her body literally demanded that she relinquish the rigid rules her anxiety had built.
And her transparency around her personal life over the last few years has been revolutionary in its own right. She secretly married British rapper Slow Tie in Las Vegas in July 2022, keeping it entirely out of the tabloids.
But when it came to the biological reality of motherhood, she refused to hide behind a filter.
She had 2 closely spaced pregnancies, welcoming a daughter in February 2024 and a son in April 2025. And instead of posting curated glowing photos of motherhood, she publicly admitted to suffering from postpartum depression and severe anxiety.
Yeah, she told her fans her head had been all over the place after being pregnant and breastfeeding for over 2 years.
By doing that, she is actively dismantling the myth that wealth, fame, or even a loving marriage act as a shield against chemical and biological realities.
She is allowing her fans to see the cracks in the armor.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if there is a single defining event that physically embodies this entire philosophy, it is her performance at the 2022 Brit Awards.
Oh, man. The fall on the stairs is unforgettable.
It is the ultimate collision of everything we've discussed. So she is performing live on global television, singing a medley of her hits. She starts descending this massive grand staircase on stage, and she stumbles.
And it's not a little trip.
No. She takes a heavy, very public fall right in front of millions of viewers, but she never stops singing.
She hits the ground, her kinetic training kicks in, she rolls with the impact, and she keeps her vocal projection perfectly steady.
We didn't even find out until later that she had literally torn a tendon during the impact.
This raises an important question about our cultural relationship with fame. Are society's expectations of celebrities finally shifting?
I think they have to be. Because 10 or 15 years ago, a pop star falling on stage was a career-ending humiliation.
The tabloids would loop the footage to mock them for weeks. But when Anne-Marie fell, the cultural response was entirely different. It was an overwhelming wave of support. The public praised her grit.
Because they recognized the ki. They recognized the martial artist taking a hit to the ribs, absorbing the shock, and staying in the fight.
Exactly. It is the perfect physical metaphor for her entire brand. She acknowledges the messy, painful reality. She adapts in real time while in immense pain, and she finishes the song.
She proved that owning your humanity, whether that means admitting to postpartum depression, navigating OCD, or literally tearing a tendon on television, doesn't diminish your star power. It solidifies it.
It really does.
So, bringing this all back to where we started, we opened with the tension between the stoic karate champion on the Vegas mat and the isolated, crying teenager in Essex.
Right.
We now know that her legacy isn't just a billion streams or a shelf of awards. Her superpower was synthesizing the discipline of combat with the raw empathy of an outcast.
She showed a generation that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it is the ultimate point of connection.
But that leaves me with a genuinely provocative thought to end on for you guys. If deep emotional trauma, isolation, and anxiety were the very mechanisms that forged her authentic connection with the world, what happens to that artistry as she continues to heal?
This is a great question.
Through her therapy, her book, and her evolving family life, she is actively confronting the demons that built her bedroom studio. It poses a fascinating paradox for the modern artist. Is the ultimate goal of a vulnerable pop star to eventually no longer need the very coping mechanisms that made them famous?
It's a compelling paradox. True growth might mean finding a completely new voice that isn't solely anchored in survival.
A completely new chapter for the martial artist. Thanks for listening to Play Pod. Keep tuning in for more stories worth knowing.